you for joining. I'm proud of you, sis. I just want to wish everyone a happy Father's Day this Sunday. To all the fathers who are role models, who are like little boys and little girls, like heroes. I just want to say, thank you so much for all that you do for your babies. We do appreciate you as moms. I know it seems like Mother's Day gets the full attention and Father's Day doesn't, but just understand without moms, it wouldn't be dads. So you are just as important. But thank you so much for joining. I'm proud of you, sis. My name is Danny Benson, and I have a special guest today, Tim Sutton. I invited him to come on because he's a police officer in Virginia. And with everything that's going on with the mass shootings, especially in school, I just wanted to get like his take or the advice that maybe all of us can maybe learn from, or things that we can do to make our school safer, to make sure our babies are safe. So I want to say, hey Tim, I'm so proud of Tim. I'm so proud of you, bro. Thank you, Tim, for joining my show. Hi, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you, Danny?
I'm doing great, and I just want to wish you a happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Are you doing anything special this Sunday? Or you don't know yet? It's a
Nothing that I
surprise?
know. Nothing that I know of. It'll probably be another day, just like every other day. But
Oh, stop.
it's
Why
fine.
do dads always sound like that? I'm just going to be treated like whatever.
Yeah, it's like you said, Mother's Day is usually a big deal. Father's Day is a little toned down, just a little bit.
Maybe because you guys are second. Maybe if
That's
Father's Day
probably
was
what it
before
is.
Mother's Day, maybe the
More than likely,
attention
that's what it is.
would be like, "Yay."
Yeah, we
But
just want to chill.
just going to chill. Well, you deserve that. You deserve all dads deserve to chill on Sunday. So if you don't get anything else, I hope you get to relax.
Just relax. That's it.
Just relax.
Yeah.
But I have you coming on because the mass shootings in this country has, I heard, it's up like 50%,
Right.
which is like, wow, that's very shocking to me. We also, of course, have the Second Amendment right to bear arms. So, with everything going on with the schools and stuff, I just wanted to know, because you're a police officer in Virginia, what are techniques that we can do to protect our kids in school? Because, we have people that are pro guns, not for guns, but the reality is, right now, we do have the right to bear arms. So we have to
Right.
find ways to make sure our schools stay as safe as possible. So
Right.
I just wanted you to talk about some things of how can we get that to happen.
Well, I think one of the things, and there's been a lot of talk about getting rid of your school resource officers, when in fact I think your school resource officers need to be in the schools. They're not there just for protection of everybody, but they're also there to develop the relationships with the children at those school age years. And some of the relationships they're able to build are huge, and they carry on even after school when the students get out. So building that relationship and realizing that officers were not the bad guys that you always see on television. There's some bad apples out there to give all of us a bad name, but for the most part, officers, we're just normal people. We just have a different job to do. But just getting in those schools and breaking that barrier, breaking that wall down, and to develop those relationships at an earlier age, then hopefully they will keep on, you know, well beyond school years.
So how do you think you could prevent? What are some ideas that we can prevent, like someone entering elementary school, high school
Right.
with a
Well,
gun?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of schools are doing a good job of keeping the doors locked, and you have to buzz to get in. They acknowledge who you are and all, but there are going to be instances where, for some reason, something it falters and somebody does get in or gets through the cracks. But I think just being diligent and keeping those doors locked, make sure everybody knows what's going on around the outside. And the big catchphrase: if you see something, say something. The tough thing is a lot of these, you know, we're always worried about copycat shootings where you see so much of it on the media, one particular shooting, and then that pretty much plants a seed in somebody else's mind to go do the same thing. So many times once we see a nationally a school shooting, you'll pretty much see every agency in this country do a quick lockdown on their schools, and they've got officers in the parking lot because we're trying to keep that from happening. But I think the key is to get these officers in the schools, get them prepared. I know Columbine, ever since Columbine, the way we react and the way we respond has completely changed. Where the officers get on the scene, and the first two or three officers, their job is to get into that school and neutralize whatever threat that is. They're pretty much running in past everybody. They're going to where they hear the shots, and these officers in my position. You don't want to, but that's what your job is. You run towards the gunshots so you can get there and hopefully end the situation as quickly as possible. It's scary to think about, but it's reality and what I'm sworn to do.
Yeah, because what happened in Uvalde is I personally feel that the cops were scared to go in. I know that is their job. They're supposed to serve and protect, but I also feel like they are humans, and sometimes something happens where you freeze a little bit, and especially when there's an AR-15 in there, and like this might be the last time you might see your family, you
Hmm.
might pause. I mean, it's still not an excuse because so many kids maybe could have been saved if they went
Right.
in there sooner. So what techniques can officers do to better protect themselves in a situation like that?
Just don't go in alone. I mean, you've got to get two or maybe three officers to go in, and you just got to start clearing that building and make it going towards whatever threat that is. And the tough thing about it, and we go through a lot of the training is, even if you have students laying on the ground injured, and you talk about being able to do it. You actually have to force yourself to go past those that are injured because your number one thing is to get to that threat, because where you may go past one person that's been shot and hurt, there are other ones being shot and hurt wherever that gunfire is, and you have to bypass all of that. And you don't know whether or not that bad guy or bad person is running towards you, running like they're just a average student. So you're watching everything. And I can tell you some of the training we've done. We do active shooter training. We use simunitions, but we're actually shooting things kind of like pellet balls. Um, just through a training, when you're going into a building and you're going to confront somebody, you talk about the adrenaline going just in training, and you finally get to the end of the scenario and you're sitting there trying to catch your breath and calm down. I've never had to encounter an actual active shooter, but I cannot imagine how their adrenaline is going. And you talk about the officer standing by and maybe hesitating to go in. That's one of those things you don't know until you're in that situation. I like to think that if I got on scene and I knew what my job was, I would not hesitate and I would do it. But you don't know until you're in that situation. That's what you're supposed to do. You want to revert back to your training and do it. But you're going to have some officers maybe hesitate just a few minutes because, yeah, that's a situation. I'm going to go in and I'm going to see my family again. But sometimes you just have to put that behind you and realize that's what I was going to do. And the longer I wait and the more gunshots are fired, the more lives can be taken. So I've got to get in there and neutralize that threat. I will tell you, we had, we didn't share this earlier, but you talk about active shooter. Back on February 1st, we actually had an active shooter here in Virginia, and it happens to be a college where my twin daughters go. And at about noon, I got a text message that says active shooter hiding from one of my daughters, and the other daughter texted me and said active shooter hiding. I love you. And you talk about something that just it's like, wait a minute, this is not supposed to happen. So I tried to call one daughter, got her on the phone. Well, she didn't answer, and I got my other daughter on the phone, and I could hear her crying. And all of a sudden, I heard a thump, and the phone went dead. So I actually ran back to my residence and grabbed all the weapons I had and threw them in my car and headed up to that college. And once we got up there, discovered my girls were okay, but there was an active shooter. The student actually, or a former student, had come on campus and actually killed one of the police officers and the security officer on campus. But I ended up having to respond to where my daughters were involved in an active shooter. So, we see it on the news. I can sit there and we can train for it every day, but all of a sudden, that one day, I get the text messages, and I'm like, "This is real. This is me. I've got to deal with this." So that was very eye opening in itself.
Well, like fortunately, like my kids are in elementary school, and as we were talking before, we have two officers there.
Right.
And also we have to get buzzed in.
Right.
We can't just like walk right in, and like all of the entrances, you from inside coming out, you can leave, because of course
Right.
if there's a fire you have to be able to exit. But all the entrances are locked from the outside, so everyone has to come through the main entrance where you have to get buzzed, where you have to show your license, and then it comes up in a computer.
Right.
And usually like the person that sits up front knows everyone,
Right.
so I feel personally that every school should have
Oh
something
yeah.
along the lines of that. Even we're not even allowed to park in front of the school. Like they
Right.
they put they put barriers there where we have to park away from the school, because I guess I get it. Like they want to make sure they have a clear area so they can see
Right.
if anything's going on. Because sometimes when there's cars sitting there and people are mixing in, you don't get to see certain things that's happening. So they don't
Right.
let they don't let anyone really park in front of the school. So if there is someone walking, they're police officers, they could kind of see if something suspicious is going on, like their coat they're wearing, if something looks weird.
Right.
So my question is this: why isn't every school like that?
Well, it all depends on where they are. I know some of the jurisdictions around here in Virginia, there's a big push because the parents, they don't want officers in the school, or they don't want the officers in uniform in the school, or carrying a weapon in the school. Well, I'm sorry, if I'm a police officer, that's part of my job and that's part of my equipment. But some jurisdictions around here, the city and different places, they're trying to push to get officers out of the schools. They don't want them in the schools. But what it's going to take is one bad situation to happen. They're going to be yelling for officers to be back in the schools. So, and we live in a evil world. There are bad people out there, and no matter what kind of prep you take or whatever you do to try to prevent something, unfortunately, if somebody wants to hurt somebody, they're going to do everything they can to hurt them. We can hopefully intervene and get there and keep it from happening. But as well as I do, there's just people in this world that want to hurt people, and they're very unhappy, very evil people, and they're going to do everything they can to accomplish their goal. Hopefully, we can be tipped off and get their information before they're able to do it. But no, I don't see why in the world you would want the officers out of school. They're good protection, but they're also there to build those relationships with the kids because these kids are growing up watching the television and they're seeing everything that officers are doing wrong. I had a situation. I do a lot of work with kids with autism and other disabilities, and I've shared the story on my show, A New Perspective. But probably about 6, 7 months ago, we had a call about a 14-year-old boy with autism, African American. He was at an intersection with his aide and took off running out of the vehicle, running through traffic. So my officers are flying down the road trying to get there because we're worried he's going to get hurt. My first officer got on the scene and told everybody else, said, turn your lights off, turn your sirens off, everything's fine, slow up, and just needed the sergeant to show up. So I pulled in the parking lot, and my officer's sitting on the ground with the boy, face to face, just sitting there talking about football. And I said, that's not anything you're ever going to see on the news. Now, if he'd have grabbed him and slammed him on the ground, that would have been all over the news. But sitting on the ground, talking to him, calming him down, talking about football, you're not going to see that on the news because it's not going to shock the conscience. It's a touchy feely story. They don't want that. But to be able to build those relationships and hopefully, you'd be surprised the information these school resource officers are able to get once students start trusting them. Somebody may mention something about bringing a gun to school or doing this or that. If they build those relationships, usually they're not going to keep quiet. They're going to tell somebody, and then that somebody can let that officer know because they built that trust.
Yeah, like, well, in my school they actually don't wear their uniforms.
right,
so they could blend more with the kids. But
right,
we know they're police officers, but
right,
I kind of get what the parents are saying. Like they don't want them to wear uniforms because it's just like it makes us feel like
right.
what's gonna happen. Because when kids see police officers, sometimes they think it's danger.
Yeah,
So I mean, I think there could be a compromise made where if they are in the schools, that they could just wear plain clothes.
right, right, right,
Still with the bulletproof vest, and then they know all the kids. Like they start interacting with the kids, and maybe they could pick up if a kid is a little bit off.
right,
Maybe they can pick that up and maybe go to because every school has like a psychology department,
right,
and sometimes I feel that a job of a psychologist is to know every kid in that school,
right.
because you can pick up signs before, because that's what you went to school for.
No,
You know what
right,
I mean? You could pick up signs like if a kid is suppressed, if a kid is being bullied. um I think every kid should at least sit down with a psychologist in the school yearly, just so psychologists could ask questions to make sure that the kid is okay. Because sometimes
right,
it stinks that they're shooting all these kids,
right,
but sometimes I don't want to keep saying mental health, because it seems like we're just throwing, it's just mental health. But
right,
these kids who are going into school and they're shooting, you always kind of find out that they didn't feel like they belong. They kind of felt like they were outsiders.
right,
And maybe if the school could pick up on those kids earlier,
right,
maybe they could prevent like the kid having any animosity and coming in and purchasing a gun, and
right. Well, a
and
lot of it, they're finding guns. They're finding the parents' guns, and that's why it's imperative that the parents keep the guns locked up. Um, I think a lot of it is just the lack of respect for people. It was probably about 8 years ago, which this blew my mind, but I'm in uniform actually, with the Stetson hat, everything, uh, as a police officer. And all of a sudden, we get a call for a school bus. There's a fight on a school bus. And it ended up being a sixth grade boy and a seventh grade girl, brother and sister. Well, I was the closest one there. So the bus had pulled over in a parking lot. And this completely blew my mind. I'm 6'4", 280 pounds. I get out of the car, walk up to the bus, and the door is shut, but there's this sixth grade boy standing there. And the bus driver opens the door, and he looks at me and goes, "You better get out of my way right now." And I said, "Excuse me." And he said, "I told you to get out of my way right now." And I said, "Well, you're going to be pretty embarrassed when I grab you and put you on the ground and handcuff you in front of all these people on this bus." And he just stood there. And I had another deputy come up, and I said, "You need to talk to him. I don't need to talk to him." But here I am, an authority figure, standing there, and sixth grader. That's what he's telling me when I walk up into it. Found out later on the parents were scared to death of him, and that's the problem. That too many of the parents are calling us because they're scared to death of their kids. Law enforcement, we're getting calls to respond because the 6-year old didn't want to go to school. So the parents are calling 911, and they want one of us to respond and make their child go to school. They're wanting us to be the parent, pretty much. But
wow,
we get those
wow.
calls. But so a lot of it, I think, comes from home. I mean, some of the parents need to take charge, and if they need to discipline these kids, they need to discipline them. But when you've got a sixth grade kid come up, I know when I was in sixth grade, all the way up into high school, I saw a police officer, I was intimidated, and if they said move here, move there, do this, jump this high, I would do it because there was this respect. But now the kids, for the most part, just don't respect us, and I think a lot of that starts at home.
No, that definitely starts at home. And just like when the parent was talking about, well, the shooter who killed those kids in Uvalde,
Right,
that he was really quiet, he didn't say much. But as a parent, you need to talk to your kid.
right,
Like if your kid is like quiet in his room, not saying much, go engage with him. Go find out why he's quiet, why he's not
right,
engaged. Like ask your kid, questions, like be involved in their life so you could at least pick up on something, you know, definitely be on their social media. So if
Yes.
you see anything that's irregular as a
Right.
parent, you got to do something, you know, about it. You can't just brush it off as, oh, he's just a kid, he has, you know, he's just a hormonal. No, it's like now these days you have to take things very seriously, because what's happening with these kids is because the parents are not doing mental health checkups.
Right.
You know, like, hey, are you okay, Johnny? Are you okay? You know, Jennifer. You know, they're letting these kids get worse and worse and worse, and now they're allowing these kids to go to the school worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And then, you know, the kid, because they're not communicating with their parents or don't have a place to maybe express their feelings,
Right.
they're watching TV. You know, they see the guns and they think this is like a solution to,
Right.
you know. Because sometimes I feel like it's like a murder suicide. Sometimes I feel that if they're doing this, maybe they want to kill themselves, but they want to take, you know, they want to take people with them.
Right. And that's
I
what we
mean,
have to worry about in law enforcement, because we're constantly getting calls about the person who's talking about suicide, but it's suicide by cop. And what they want to do is get in a position where they're armed and we have our weapons, and they provoke us to shoot them. And they know that if they're standing there with a gun in their hand, typically all they have to do is raise it up. And if I feel like I'm in fear for my life, then I have to do what I have to do. And that's back to what I teach with the autism and other disabilities. It's what scares me is some of these games, like Xbox games, where they're shooting people. And my son played those games; he still does. But I think if their mindset gets to be where that type of shooting and interaction is reality, I wonder if deep down they wonder, okay, well, if the officer does shoot me, I get shot, what's going to happen in 10 seconds? On those games, you come back to life. So if I shoot anybody, so you don't know what's being embedded in the brain. And I wonder if some of those games actually desensitize you to the actual shooting and killing of people. Because some of
I
the
think
games
it
are
does,
good.
because if you're playing that game constantly,
Yeah,
and you know you're so engaged in the game, like sometimes you're not even thinking, you're like just shooting
right,
the people. There's no feelings about it. It's just,
right.
you
And
know.
I
So
think it's
some kids know
desensitized.
it's not for real, and then some kids might think like, you know, it's for real. Like this is what happens if I did it.
Right, right. I don't think we didn't hurt too many people when we were playing Pac-Man and stuff, games like that. But now it's just so many of these games have gotten to be so realistic, and it seems like they take on a life of their own, and you just wonder if everybody's just getting desensitized to what's going on. And even 30 years ago, if there was a school shooting, you may or may not have heard it. You may have been on a 6 o'clock news or 6:30 news, but it's not all over the media, social media, and we're just constantly. And what I'm wondering about is I'm waiting for us to get to the time, unfortunately, when these school shootings, it's going to be like, oh yeah, there was another one yesterday. Did you hear about it? No, I didn't hear anything about it. That's what scares me. It's getting to the point where it's so common that it's not going to be a significant event, and that's scary to think about that. Where no, okay, there was a school shooting, but it didn't make the news. I feel like that's kind of where we're headed, because they're just
Really?
happening one after another, after another, after another. Yeah,
So so if we're headed that way, what can we do? Because we
we
can't just
still
let this happen. We can't have more children being killed or harmed because of these mass shootings. Something has to be
we
done.
need to lock down these schools, and we need to make sure everybody's watching what's going on. I know some schools actually started having parents working. Our county, they have this thing called watchdogs, dads of great students. And each day there's a dad of a student that's on campus just helping out doing things. And if they see something unusual, a door's been propped open or whatever, they make sure somebody knows about it. But everybody needs to do their part in just keeping the school safe. Keep making you ring the bell to come in and make sure you know who's coming in. But it just scares me to think that we're having, every couple of days, it's like we're
I
having one,
know.
and we're going to get desensitized to it, where we really need to step up and protect our kids.
And also, I think social media should step up too. I think they should have, like, if a kid says, I want to shoot a school, it should automatically like pick that up, hopefully know where the kid is, and just
Right.
contact authorities. Just for
Oh,
the simple
I
fact
know
that you're
we,
putting that on your page. Because most times when people are putting that on their page, I feel like they're about to do something.
yeah, and that's whenever we need, if you see somebody post something or make some comment or a text about hurting themselves or hurting anybody else or something about school, call your local police department or sheriff's office because get that ball rolling because I know we do that all the time. We'll have somebody see something a little bit suspicious, and we jump into action and get over there and find the individual and get with the parents and find out what. All right, what was the intent? Were they really making a threat, or is this just something stupid they said? But you got to get in there as quickly as possible to evaluate it because if you just let it slide, I wouldn't want to be that officer who just didn't do anything, and the next day you wake up and find out that somebody gone into a school and actually shot some people. So the worst thing
And
we
it,
have.
and you know what? We gotta get the kids to stick up, to stand up too, because a lot of times parents aren't on social media, and
Right,
you'll hear kids say, "Well, he posted, he was going to
right,
shoot the school," but they don't say nothing. So we have to start educating these kids that it's not snitching, it's not
right.
tattletaling. Um, you
It's
might
staying
think it's a,
alive is what it is.
yeah, you might think it's a joke, like, oh, he doesn't mean it. Whether he means it or she means it or
It,
whoever means it,
it needs to
they
be
should
looked
start
into.
training these kids to go report it,
Right,
even if it's anonymously, just so the school could be aware. Because it's not like the teachers are on their Facebook.
right,
Usually, it's friends who are following friends and family members who are following friends. So it's not like the school knows what this
right.
person is posting. So more kids need to. I think
Speak
kids need
up.
to be educated into like how to proceed in social media. If you see something that makes you not feel okay,
Right.
just like if you see something, you say something. It's the same thing with social media. If you see something, they need to know there's a safe place they can go and report it.
Yeah, and even if it's anonymous, let somebody know because we've had that happen before. But the next day before school, we made sure we had officers at all the schools, 2 or 3 officers at every school, just to be on the property in case that anonymous threat had any credibility to it. Hopefully, we could nip it in the bud right then.
Yeah,
Just
and also you are a great example of I gotta have you come on the show next time because you specialize in training officers and how to deal with autistic people, autistic kids, because sometimes I believe in what you're doing actually, because I think all officers need to be trained in how to handle autistic children or autistic adults, because 9 times out of 10 they don't know what they're doing,
right,
because it's like an intellectual disability.
right,
So
and
it's
it's
not
easy.
their fault. So when they say put the hands up, I think if a police officer is really trained,
Right,
they know the difference, as opposed to just maybe just shooting first and asking
right.
questions later.
Well, the training I do is try to get people to recognize some of the behaviors they may see with autism, other developmental disabilities. So that, I mean, you can easily interpret a behavior as threatening, but if I can give you a little information just to make you think, well, this might be autism, maybe this person is not trying to hurt me. It just saves lives. We've got tools on our belts that hurt people and take lives, and I don't want to hurt somebody who's not trying to hurt me.
Yeah, because sometimes, like as you said before, the parents are calling, the police officer, because especially with autistic kids, sometimes they can't control them or they're fearing for their life. And the last thing a parent wants is to call a police officer and then subsequently having a child get killed,
Right,
because I know it's a hard thing to even carry, because you're gonna always feel that because I called
right,
this particular police officer. Now my son's not here no more. Now my daughter's not here anymore.
right.
So what before we leave, like, what kind of training you do to get these officers more comfortable about treating autistic people differently than treating people who are you know
Neuro.
have
Yeah.
everything like fine, like they're
Yeah, I do a 4-hour class on autism and I also teach Alzheimer's and dementia. So if agencies want to get me to come in and teach them, I'll do a 4-hour block of each topic. But it's just understanding some of the behaviors. I don't teach the medical aspect of it, but just recognizing some of the behaviors, such as the stimming. When they get overstimulated, they may shake their hands, rub their hands, and they'll have some type of repetitive behavior. And sometimes they don't look you in the eye when they answer questions, and just how to interact with individuals on the spectrum. Because if you've met one, you've met one. Every single one's different. So just give you a little insight to hang on to, so that when you get in a situation, you have some training to revert back to when you respond and do your job.
And do you also think that children with autism in their schools, they should have like special training? When they see an officer, things to do, things not to do, or you think
Yeah.
they don't really understand? Like, do you think
I've done a lot of training for parents, and it's a full circle. Officers need to understand how to interact with individuals on the spectrum, but parents also need to step up and teach their children how to interact with law enforcement. Don't walk up and touch things on their belt, and that whole personal space thing. I tell officers, don't invade their personal space, but they probably will invade yours. They will come up right against you. But just teaching the kids at an early age how to interact with us.
Yeah, I think my parents taught me at an early age, like especially when a police officer stops me, I don't really ask any questions.
Right.
I just say, what you stopped me for,
Right.
and then after that, I just honestly, I put my hands on the wheel because my
Right.
parents taught me not to move, not to fidget, because
Right.
sometimes you get a little nervous.
Yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you pull somebody over, you
Yeah.
don't know what you're going to get.
And and when the officer says get your license and registration, I'm just like, okay, it's in the glove compartment, so
That's
is it okay? Because I don't know,
yeah.
especially the things
It's
that
no problem
happen.
asking. Letting them know. I'm going to reach over to the glove box and get my license. Nothing or registration. Just tell them what you're doing.
Yeah, my parents taught me, like, it makes no sense to even argue with a police officer. Let them give me your ticket, let them take you, and then we'll just get a
Right.
lawyer and figure it out then. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
getting in an argument on the side of the road is not the way to handle the situation. Just deal with it and work it out in court.
yeah, and that's why I try to, not making excuses for officers, no way possible. But I'm just saying,
Right.
we I do respect officers. I have friends who are police women, police men, or police officers.
Right.
Yes, there are some bad apples,
Hmm.
but most of them do care about, where they patrol. They do care about the
Right.
community. They do want to have a safe community and stuff like that. So we don't want the children to disrespect police officers because
No.
we're the first ones to call police officers. It's like,
Yeah. Nobody.
like
Nobody wants us
911. Where
around
are
until
you? Where are you?
nobody wants us around until they want us around. But
Yeah.
no,
So
it's no, and unfortunately, the job comes with a lot of ego sometimes. But honestly, my badge does not make me any better than anybody else. It means I got a different job to do, and I have more opportunities to get my tail beat than the average person. But it's nothing. I'm no better than anybody else. So therefore, I'm not going to treat other people like I'm better than that they're anything less than I am. We're all on the same plane. I just have a different job to do.
yes, and that's why I'm so happy you came on my show, Mr.
Of course.
Sutton. You're amazing. You're doing so much for the community, especially the autistic community, and just helping officers be more sensitive and giving them tools to know how to deal with an autistic person. So anyone out there, if you're looking for a great person to train your officers, departments, Tim Sutton, what are your handles, Tim, so people can get in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook. A New Perspective is the name of my show.
Yes.
Also, my email is aawareness12 at yahoo.com. And I've got a website. It's a-betterunderstanding.com. Don't forget the hyphen. But all my contact information is on that website. So please feel free to reach out to me. And I look forward to hearing from you.
And what is your show about, The New Perspective? So
A new
people want to reach
perspective
out to
is
that.
just giving you a new perspective on disabilities, people in the disability community, autism, other developmental disabilities, Alzheimer's, people who have autism who are doing some amazing things. I've got one kid who's an artist, Joey Fry. He's got his own art studio. And then other people who just have been involved in the journey trying to do great things to help families with disabilities.
It's an amazing show, guys. Please definitely go check out Mr. Sutton on A New Perspective. It's every Tuesday at
8:30.
yes, and thank you so much, Tim, for coming on. Happy Father's Day to you and all the wonderful fathers out there. I will
Thank you,
see you
Danny.
next. Yes, I will see you guys next week on I'm Proud of You, Sis. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.